this special talk. We're happy to be able to record it and share it with more people as we go along. So we are happy today to have Dr. Uddhab Pyakurel. He will speak about the hierarchy that has been maintained historically by Nepali state, affirming the uniqueness of a caste-based social order. Professor Pyakurel is an associate professor of political sociology, also serves as an associate dean of the School of Arts, Kathmandu University, Nepal. He, who was acting director of Global Engagement Division of KU, completed his master in political science and sociology from Tribhuvan University, joined Delhi School of Economics to pursue master's in philosophy and earn a PhD at the Nehru University, New Delhi. Being an adjunct fellow at School of Social Science and Psychology, Western Sydney University of Australia, he engages in academic journal articles and book chapters on poverty, people's participation, social inclusion, exclusion, conflict, identity, democracy, elections, Nepal's foreign relations, and other socio-political issues of Nepal and Asia. So please welcome Dr. Pyakurel.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for organizing this. Dr. Thomas, we have had a couple of discussions regarding this department, and I feel like largely international students should also know a bit about what I feel like, what I find while doing some studies. So that is how I take this opportunity, and thanks again for arranging, and thank you for participating. Do I need mic?
Sit down.
Okay.
Walk around.
Okay. While we were negotiating for the title, I shared my book, and she all of a sudden tried to find out title out of that very book. That is how, even if I was thinking of different title, might be later on, we'll discuss further regarding this. But largely, this is title of my book. This is the book I published during COVID. Largely, this is my PhD study, but I definitely try to work on it. And the very title I made is Reproduction of Inequality, meaning no society is equal. Every society has its own problem. But what is the major characteristic of Nepali society? Could be, for example, if you generally talk about caste, I'll go through characteristic of this as well. Many Nepali might say, oh, there is no caste system like thing. Yes, because legally that is not acceptable. Legally, caste-based discrimination is abolished and made punishable constitutionally and legally also. For example, we have had this punishment act. We have had law, yes, but constitution, yes, but particular law, for example, practice of untouchability and punishment act 2011. Okay, after 11, that very caste-based practice has been made a bit heinous, definitely heinous crime, and lot many punishment are imposed to those who try to practice this. That is why we say caste is no more. But in practice, for example, for me, this is very easy to even identify who is who. For example, if I try to have 5 minutes discussion with someone, might be I'll be 85% accurate to identify who is who. That very in-depth what you say, knowledge or indoctrination I have regarding this. That is why while I discuss with my students, first this proposition I make could be Nepal still is a caste society. Legally, no. Might be many people do not know the nitty-gritty, but still we are a caste society. Okay. So that is what, and then even today, for example, yes, educational data is very good. For example, until 1950, we were having only 2% literate. Now, literacy rate has reached 80+%, and many districts claim saying that we are 100% literate. But still, if you see kind of discriminatory kind of division within educated could be. For example, while I was studying, there was division. Students or people enrolled in the school and left behind. Today also, in the same proposition, I could say, people, students studying in private school, students having enrolled in public school. So almost the same division could be seen. This is seen, yes, in data, in educational data, yes. But if you try to go through applying for the job, even having public narrative, who is educated and who is not, then that very preposition comes into in practice. For example, where you study and being based on that, your employability is guaranteed, your other social network is accomplished accordingly. So today you could see many young people are having master's degree from public institutions, but their degree is not being used for employability. That is why they just apply for labor market in Korea, Qatar, etc. So this is kind of scenario you could see. And largely, who are they? They in the public school today. Who are they in the private school today? Could be the generation together with me, were in the school, send their kids to public, private, and those who were not able to send their school when I was studying in the school could be on the other side, public. And largely even masses are in the public, but their recognition is problematic. This is one of the examples. That is why I put this very title of reproduction. Okay. Might be I'll have time to discuss later on about this, but might be you have more interesting thing to understand out of my presentation. I'll focus more on Dalit, the very term Dalit today, because for me, and I guess for everyone who try to understand Nepal, the marginalized most are Dalits. And that is how this study is focused on Dalit. Dalit term is very broad. For example, you know, what is the meaning of, literary meaning of Dalit is those who are suppressed, crushed, oppressed, they are called Dalits. But this is broad definition. While talking about this very term in political context in Nepal, India, and even wherever there are Hindus, some people started bringing a notion to say someone is Dalit than others. Yes, suppression is elsewhere, might be suppression is contextual. For example, women are suppressed, even within the high caste people, there are poor and suppressed, but the very term is used particularly referring to those who were formerly untouchables. Okay. So former untouchables largely are the most marginalized people today. That is why that very term is used for those community. And even if that very term is coined in India, because Dalit movement was very strong right from 1932. For example, while Britishers were there, there were a couple of round tables with the India government, and Ambedkar, the leader of Dalit movement, was quite visible to negotiate with Mahatma Gandhi, British India regarding this. So that is how in India, Dalit movement was very strong, and we have to remember Mahatma Phule, not Mahatma Gandhi. Definitely Mahatma Gandhi also did many contributions on emancipation of Dalit, but Mahatma Phule and Dr. Ambedkar are a couple of them who tried to negotiate with this very term. Gandhi referred Dalits with different term, Harijan, meaning this siblings of or son and daughter of child of Hari. That is why Mahatma Gandhi said Hari is Ishwar, God, and all children of God are Harijan. That is how Mahatma Gandhi tried to say. But here Phule and Ambedkar tried to say that no, they are Dalits because they are the most marginalized, most suppressed. But you can remember in India, this is not legal term as of now as well. They are considered scheduled tribe, not Dalit. Legally, constitutionally, this very terminology is not used. Only academically and in other aspects, this Dalit is used in India. But Nepal is a bit progressive because in our constitution itself, we have said Dalit. So in a way, we could say that we are progressive to recognize their identity. Okay. I'm very concerned if sure. Then who are Dalits? Meaning might be you have to follow this caste system. That is what I said. Caste is having peculiar characteristic. It's not very easy to understand. And I try to characterize with a couple of things. Definitely a Hindu phenomenon, but now it is a bit transferred to Dalit Christian, Dalit Muslims in India, but it has its own context. I can elaborate later on. Largely Hindu phenomenon, and there are a couple of characteristics. It's very hereditary, and it's being based on hierarchical order. Definitely, in a couple of occasions, there is a very strict mobility. In Nepali context, we have a bit ups and down. You can have limited mobility upward and downward. And finally, practice of untouchability is the essence of that very caste system. So that is how I try to define. And there are a couple of myths. Might be you have heard how this caste system was introduced. Many people generally positively say that this is part of division of labor. And that very division of labor was made inheritant, meaning that has become family business and people started treating it. I guess this is not that much very simple. Might be people say, but the very argument is this is not a division of labor, but rather this might be the division of laborer. Whoever were laborer, they were divided and that made hereditary. That is how caste system was there. That is one statement. There is myth behind, for example, Hinduism is very pluralistic concept of way of doing. Might be this is different than the term religion. Western literature say religion largely, for example, if you talk about today's religion, largely one book and one God in every religion, but Hinduism is different. We're having very plural way of understanding Hinduism. We say 33 million gods, meaning everything is God for Hindus. You could see while walking down to Kathmandu's narrow roads, you find in every step there is God. If you put some yellow and red color powder on top of anything, tree, stone, everything that becomes God for Hindus, Nepalese at least. So varieties of God we say, and we don't have even a single book to refer like Quran, Bible, etc. So that is how I find Hinduism a bit different than other religion. Religion might not be synonymous to our Hindu dharma. Okay, it's very, and then we say 33 million gods. And that is how we can differentiate from other religion. But there are also a couple of occasions to identify a few important gods. For example, Durga Puja is coming. Durga Puja, Dasai. Durga meaning a goddess would be symbolized in a very large manner and she will be celebrated from a couple of days after. Like this, there are maybe three gods, we could say, for giving birth, for reproduction, for taking care of, and for destroying. And this Brahma, having four faces at a go, is brilliant in a way. He's very capable enough to have reproduction capacity. He generally could give birth from his every organ. That was kind of myth we have. And whoever born from this part could be the upper layer, upper caste, Brahmin, and whoever born from this part would be having strong strength in the body. That is how they are Kshatriya, they are service people, and those who born from the feet are considered as untouchables. That is what is kind of myth. But I don't believe myth is myth. It was created to make social order at that time. There was no law, there was no police, there was nothing to regulate like today in the modern society. So how to rule, how to run the society could be creating myth and posing them the concept of sin so that they follow this order. That was kind of my analysis of the past, having myth and organizing the society. Here, I find this very story of this caste system a bit relevant, because that very broken man theory was also popularized by Dr. Ambedkar. I don't know how many of you have heard. He tried to give a logic. For example, process of civilization, human evolution system. For example, yes, hunting, gathering, Stone Age, then nomadic life, then only civilization. And he tried to conceptualize, saying civilization was not an opportunity for everyone at a go, meaning civilization process was different for different people. Even today, you could see a couple of nomadic groups elsewhere. I could find one group in Israel. They are still doing nomadic thing in a bit sophisticated way. In Nepal also, we definitely have nomads even today. Meaning, he tried to conceptualize, saying some people already settled, civilized, but others were not. And those who civilized, having farming and other activities, were always disturbed by others. So there was negotiation. And negotiation was such, hey, why you are disturbing always to us? Why not you also learn our skill and settle somewhere? Then eventually that was the agreement. And those, the then already civilized, tried to teach them, saying that stay somewhere else, outside the city, outskirts, come and do the sort of labor and learn whatever skill we use, and might be you also can use it. And he even tried to say that there was some religious concept as well. They were beef eater, they eat every meat, but those civilized might not be having this very concept of eating meat. That is how those civilized imposed this practice of untouchability on them who were around, not in the main city, main settlement, but outside. That is how this very caste system was organized. That is what Ambedkar said. Meaning, we don't know from where, how it was started, but I try to narrate a couple of myths, couple of arguments, and the latest theory by Ambedkar. We can discuss further. Yes. And I argue saying that in Nepal, whatever caste I have narrated earlier, we have had different caste system than other Hindu society. For example, in India, tribals were never part of this caste system. Muslims were never part of caste system. Now there is Buddhist, this Dalit Muslims as well. That is different story, I'll tell you. But here, the very concept of Asali Hindustan was state slogan in the beginning while we started having our state formulation process. What is Asali Hindustan is very interesting. Hindustan, you might be recalled, India, the then India, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, could be considered Hindustan. Later on, Pakistan was divided. Still, Hindustan is India today. So Hindustan is there, but we almost the same characteristic we have, small state with 255 years history, how to differentiate ourselves, how to assert our identity. That was, I guess, the then idea to assert with this very Asal Hindustan. They says, yes, Hindustan is there. They're having a bit polluted, according to their idea, polluted Hinduism, because Hinduism is only for Hindus. We, being a small state, try to assert for Asali, meaning pure Hindustan. Asali Hindustan meaning pure Hindustan. So that is why what they did was whoever lives in Nepal has to follow this caste-based social order. That is what was the uniqueness of Nepali caste system. Okay. If you try to see this in a, so that is where you find interesting thing. For example, this is global social order today. Sorry, global social, it should be social order. It is global social society. I try to make it. And largely Nepal divided, as I said, Hinduism, there are four groups. Born from this, born from this, born from this, and born from this. But in Nepal, what we try to do could be, for example, here, these two were clubbed, Brahmin and Kshatriya. This and this, two were clubbed together and made Tagadhari. What is Tagadhari meaning? Those who were secret thread. Okay? Taga means dhago. The thread, dhari means wearers. You might have seen people wearing secret thread. I also did it during my childhood because I born in a Brahmin family, but I threw away later on. So that is where these two were together, Tagadhari, number one. And still there are other four things. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4. But largely they were three, like this. I teach like this. Largely they are three, but second and third are having two subcategories. For example, in the second one, largely ethnic minorities and tribes were posed to second one. Who are they? They are considered as Matwali, meaning those who are allowed to drink alcohol. Interesting. First one, Tagadhari, they have their own responsibility. They should. They are considered as Dvija also. Second birth they have once they put this secret thread. This Matwali meaning alcohol drinker, definitely, but there were two subcategories. While there was this civil code, this civil code was introduced in 1854, just after the first civil code, according to my understanding, was introduced in France. My prime minister was in France. He came back and he introduced this. And that very code said, while that very code, civil code was introduced, we still had this slavery. And those alcohol drinkers were further divided into two. Yes, alcohol drinker, but cannot be considered as treated as a slave. Number one, higher. They should not be treated as slave, but alcohol drinker. And the third one could be they are alcohol drinker and they can be treated as slave. They can be qualified to be a slave. So that is how this second category was made. Third category, definitely untouchables. Here, this is untouchables. Here what we did could be at least two major religious minority today Muslims and Christians. Christians were told mlecha, not specifically it was mentioned, but mlecha meaning foreigners. And at that time, who were the foreigner considered by Nepali state could be those who follow Christianity. Might be very less in number. We're talking long back. So that is how today's two religious minorities were put in this ladder, last but second last according to subdivision. And the final were those who were considered be born from the feet. And we're talking them as Dalits today because yes, both were untouchable, but the condition was different. For example, for Christian and mlecha, what was the Nepali term used was pani nachalne choi chito halnu naparn, meaning their water is not acceptable, but one should not go for purification if they happen to touch with upper caste people. For example, I am a Muslim, he is Brahmin. He was carrying all the way rice pudding in the tiffin box. I happen to touch him. I am a Muslim, he is Brahmin. What is the scenario? Yes, definitely that very tiffin, that very rice pudding is polluted. He can't use. Either he throw it out or give me. This is useless for him. This pot he can go dry, manage it, but he should not go for body purification because they are Muslim and mlecha. They are a bit higher. This is the case of this category. Okay, largely untouchable, but water untouchable, but not body, you could say. If water related things, they are polluted, but body is okay. But the last one is very interesting. For example, same case, I am Dalit. He's Brahmin, he bought that very rice pudding together with him. Definitely rice pudding, even for the upper strata, that won't be usable. That is why either he has to throw it out or give it to me. Thanks. But he has to do more, a little more, because once he touched upon me, then his body got polluted. So he has to go back. If he is wearing secret thread, that has to change, take holy bath, go for golden water, sprinkling of golden water or some purification process. So that is the case. Okay. Sure. That is why I say for even a Hindu country, for example, a bit different than in India, because in India, for tribes and for religious minority, it was a bit, they were not taken into that very caste fold. But in Nepal, everyone was taken into caste fold, and the good number of people who were considered to be born from the feet were miserably placed in the social hierarchy. They were the lowest in the social hierarchy. So you could see the difference. I put this. Generally, caste system, you understand, could be this. Birth from this, birth from this, birth from this, and birth from this. No minority, no tribes will be under that. Pure caste system. But Nepali caste system, everyone on board, 5 hierarchy, somewhere clubbed in, somewhere having subgroups. That is how you understand this. And I put that very row as well. I said, for example, we might say that there's no caste, but even today's constitution, the very revolutionary constitution, tried to mention these groups. Because why? Why it is so? Might be this is of your interest. Because due to this historical injustice, for example, largely this very 5 category were being based on what to do by a human being and what not to do. For example, we're allowed not to drink alcohol. Somewhere only allowed to drink alcohol. Some were not allowed to even wear nice clothes. Some were not allowed to have property. Some were not allowed to listen kind of spiritual lecture. Some were not allowed to even touch holy books, etc. Meaning total knowledge system and total economic activities were not permitted to many out of these categories. What happened then? Definitely, what we're doing today, we're being based on so-called knowledge system, and that is largely based on reading, writing, your knowledge, whatever. If you are illiterate but you are very smart, there is no place at all for today's society. I tell my students saying that, yes, definitely, first doctor was certified by non-doctor. First PhD like me was certified by non-PhDs. But today there is a structure that tells you that if you don't have certificate, you are not qualified. Forget about your knowledge. Knowledge versus this qualification is very important today. And who gets this is largely those who are used to. For example, yes, definitely everyone has knowledge. For example, even this community, if you try to see this community, they are the only skilled people according to today's labor market, I could say. For example, who are musicians? Largely them. Who are this technical people? Largely them. They were metalsmith, they were goldsmith, they were musicians, whatnot. But their knowledge is not certified by university system unless they go to the university and school. And today, if they are not having this access, until recently, even seating arrangement, if there is Dalit, there would be no space for them. Teacher might say, no, friend, you should not be here. Otherwise, others will also have hue and cry. That was the situation earlier. Meaning they were left behind of whatever social system we are talking today. Then, who is efficient? As I said, this reproduction of inequality even is there. That is why, though whoever were high caste, for example, up there and some ethnic community, thanks to some of the ethnic community like Newar, they were the urban dwellers. That is how they cast this opportunity to be the traders. They managed to have money. That is how they are a bit upward mobile now. Definitely linguistically, they are also marginalized, but education, economy-wise, they might be forward today. Otherwise, largely might be we don't have data. We don't have very much disaggregated data. That's the problem. Yes, some people are lagging behind of being over there as well. Yes, linguistically and respect-wise, they are okay. But economically might be they are poor, but we don't have data. And here, for example, might be over there 90% are upward mobile and might be 10% are in margin. Here you could see just opposite. Might be 90% are in margin and only 5 to 10% are having okay condition or better condition in economy and education. So that is how to address those concerns. We have to come up with this constitutional provision to make a policy called affirmative action, might be you are familiar with. If not, then we say positive discrimination. How we elaborate it? Yes, there was discrimination. That is how society is unequal. Now we have to correct it given the condition. That is why we now try to undo. Give some benefits to the marginalized one so that they will be able to compete with the with the dominant minority. They are majority, marginalized are majority, and dominant are minority. This is what is our beauty. Our country, Nepal, is country of minority in many aspects, because the largest community we have, this Chetri, is 16%, only 16. And this community is also almost competing with that very Kshatriya community, the largest community. Meaning the largest is 16, meaning very small communities we have. We have 148 caste ethnic group according to latest census. That is why now we have made it and did some positive discrimination aspect. Very simple. Positive discrimination means yes, discrimination, but for correcting the past, meaning for positive sense. That is why this concept of constitutional concept is being, and this very caste system is having, even within Nepal, we're having different way of dealing with caste system. This is very, if you want to study in detail, might be this is one of the reference point. For example, Kathmandu caste system might not be similar to other hill caste system and Tarai caste system. In the plain area, we are very much influenced by India. Kathmandu is also a bit influenced by Indian caste system. And in the hill region, there is mixture of Lamaist Buddhism and Indian caste system. So this might be of your interest, but might not be able to address today. I can give you some literature if you want. Okay. As I said, we don't have very disaggregated data, but aggregated data is interesting. For example, largely Dalit communities are the most marginalized in education, in per capita income, in for example, even facilities like toilet, poverty, everywhere they are marginalized. That is why we ask for disaggregated data. Also, we say that they are the most marginalized because we don't have data, and we are pursuing government and other policy makers saying that why not we have disaggregated data based on that. So then you see, while realize this, and largely in countries like ours, what is the scenario could be? Whatever is your social base, that is reflected in politics as well. Representation, not only education, not only a job, not only business, but in politics also the similar thing was happening. For example, we had democracy. We had 4 elections of this adult franchise, following adult franchise. 1960 first, 1990 second, we had difficult time, ups and down in democracy. After 60, only in 1991 there was election, 94 election, and 99 election. Out of 4 parliamentary elections, you see, only a Dalit could win from the constituency. It was scenario. Out of 4 parliamentary, only a person could get elected from the constituencies. That is what was the scenario for Dalits while we are talking about democracy. Democracy also could not help them to be elected. That is why this reservation was a necessity. That is why we push for this reservation. Many people say that, oh, why again discrimination? But we say this is for positive cause. That is why affirmative action, positive discrimination. So recently, these were the laws, for example, and we try to create reservation not only in police, education, civil service, health, armed police, even army, because they have to be empowered. If they see their face everywhere, then only they feel like, oh, I have social capital. I can approach others. Otherwise, you see what happens? For example, a poor Brahmin go to the school, because he or she could see many people around as a social capital, their own people. Yes, my far distant uncle is there, might be he can help. My distant auntie is there, might be she can help. So this very concept might encourage people to study even if they are poor. But for Dalits, even if they are reasonably okay, they see no one as a support hand and they feel like, oh, even if I spend 10 years doing my 10, then what next? Rather, why not I jump to work from next day and earn money? That was kind of tendency. That was kind of realization. That is why everywhere, for example, if there is abuse, then if there is no man, no police from Dalit community, might be he or she might not have a similar sense of that very community who come up with this very sensitivity. So to make issues sensitive also, we try to have this kind of provision. And I guess, yes, there are many limitations, but we could say that the result is not very bad. See, now, as I said, we had only a Dalit elected until 1999, before 2000. But all of a sudden, in 2008, we have had 49 Dalit parliamentarian at a go. From 1 in 4 assemblies, 49 at a go in the assembly. So it was, don't you think that it was good? Yes, definitely good. Then onwards, many positive things happened. But for example, I refer 2011 law that was product of that very house because there were people to lobby. Why not we have this law? So that is how law were coming out the way. And now constitution made representation mandatory even in the local body. That is how you could see we have had 2 elections after new constitution. Local body, provinces, and federal government. So picture is not very positive, but again also not very bad. For example, we have reservation of Dalit women, the most marginalized. Out of Dalit also definitely gendered society we have. That is why Dalit women are, we say, triply marginalized. Yes, as a woman, as a Dalit, and also as a woman of Dalit. So that is how they are triply marginalized. And today, in every ward is our lowest body to deal with, lowest local government body to deal with. There will be 5 elected people at the ward level. 1 would be chairperson, and 4 could be members. So 5 elected. Out of 5, 2 will be reserved for women. And out of 2, 1 should be a Dalit woman. Okay, that is how the proposition is there. So you could see out of 6,500, out of 6,743 wards, we have had 6,565 Dalit women elected in 27 and 6,619 Dalit were elected in 2022. For example, earlier, there were, for example, earlier 176 wards didn't find Dalit candidate, Dalit woman candidate. This time 124 wards didn't find Dalit candidate. Otherwise, this is mandatory and every ward field this candidate and they get win there. And definitely if there is no reservation, you find very less chance for them to go up. But we are very positive because of this, because if now they are pushed to the politics by this law, then they find their own space. They have now confidence saying that I am elected, and in that election, everyone voted for them. High caste, low caste, so-called, Everyone voted them. That is how they will be empowered and they will be going well in the future. Why we say so? Could be, for example, our women representation was also like this before. Before 1990, women representation was very less. And we try to create a space for Dalit women, women in the world level. And many world level elected people are in the parliament today. So they try to empower themselves. They try to renegotiate within the society because of their empowerment of being elected once. So this might be one of the examples. So this is very positive part. Okay. So this is the scenario today. And I'm still having my own dilemma, how to get rid of this very task of mind we have. As I said, we are still caste society because, yes, today largely the kind of very strong caste behavior we had earlier might be a bit weakened. For example, dining, going together, eating together, going to the film hall together, having class together, these are not any issues anymore. Might be some issues are there. Still, renting house is problematic even in cities like Kathmandu. You might have read, I guess, 2 years back, while there was the COVID was being relaxed, there was a story in Kathmandu, Lalitpur metropolitan city. A lady, what is it? Owner was seeking for tenant. She was trying to find out a person to rent her house, and there was a negotiation. Someone came and said that, okay, your room, house is okay, and I can rent. It was negotiated, but in between, these two ladies, Newar lady and Dalit lady, had a telephonic conversation, and the supposed to be tenant tell that I belong to this caste. And then all of a sudden, answer was different. She was saying, "Oh no, I don't want to give room to you. Please find other places." And there was sort of public debate as well. Still, people try to do this. Then eventually, she blamed, saying that her grandmother didn't want Dalits to stay together in that house. So in urban space also, even this is an issue, but largely people might say that there is no that is not an issue. And might be youngsters might not know the details. They know some practices, but they don't know what the civil code was and how the very concept of caste was being practiced. Largely, what were the negotiation one had to do while following the caste. That was not taught largely to the youngsters. That is why youngsters might be reluctant to discuss with this, saying that I don't know, and I might not be able to answer what is it. Might not be I might not practice this. That might be story you might listen largely while you deal with Nepali people. But I said caste society due to a couple of concerns. For example, while marrying, even today, might be 80-90% Nepali try to find out their own people to marry who are supposed to traditionally be able to marry. They won't go beyond, they don't want to go beyond caste. And definitely not with those who are having status of being born from the feet. Today, even today, try to explain. Even if they have had this relations unknowingly, knowingly, then once there is time of marriage, they get separated. And you must be knowing this honor killings in India, even today. If there is intercaste marriage between Dalit and non-Dalit, their system is a bit difficult. They don't have place for them to be after having this intercaste marriage. At least we have. For example, our social tradition say, our law said, for example, these three, this, and this, can go for intercaste marriage, and there is place. And largely there is upward and downward mobility. As I said, strict and limited. Some in India, this is very strict. There is no upward, downward mobility if you marry intercaste. But here, this Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya are having space. For example, if a Brahmin boy marry to a Vaishya girl, then Vaishya girl's status could be upgraded and come somewhere here. That is where upward mobility, definitely gendered, but upward mobility is okay. But for all three, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, if they marry to a boy or girl, doesn't matter, there is no gender, then everyone has to have punishment of degradation of their status. Everyone would be Dalit, either Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishya, whoever married to those from the social strata, then only degradation is okay. So there in India, that is why honor killing is happening. For us, we have arranged society. That is how we are a bit flexible regarding this idea. But as I said, our system still is having this caste of mind in many occasions. For example, while there is ritual, even within high caste, we have practice of untouchability within household. For example, girls and adult women are time and again facing this practice of untouchability during menstruation, largely. And many ladies themselves okayed this very process, even if they are educated, they are well off in economic and other status. Very much internalization of this very concept of sin. Okay, they internalize the very concept of sin in a very strong manner. That is how they can't overcome. And they push their daughters also to follow. I have a daughter at the age of 70, and she narrated, oh, many of my friends still go for this 4-day practice of untouchability, menstruation period, taking them aside from day-to-day activities, for example, kitchen, prayers room, etc., were untouchable, inaccessible for them. That is what they accept even today. And largely mothers could be the force behind daughters just to follow this. That's very unfortunate part. I might sound a bit gender, but I guess this is the reality. Father might be a bit flexible, but mother, and I have sociological analysis of this, but I'll tell you later on, but this is the reality. Why mothers are forcing might be there. If there something wrong happened and father will be pushing her to the corner. That is why mother seems to be vigilant, but father is behind as well. So these are sociological analysis of this patriarchy and gender thing regarding caste system. And I guess we'll have a lot many things to discuss, but largely I could say I started from why I say reproduction, because still that very phenomenon, earlier phenomenon is visible, because we couldn't address economic and other things. Rather, we try to only say that we are this practice of untouchability is illegal. But to be in the same equal pay, we have to do many things. How to empower them economically, because they were not allowed to do economic activities earlier. And all of a sudden we say democracy and all are equal. Then two unequal cannot fight for one thing. Again, there need to be kind of unequal treatment, and that is why positive discrimination is there. But still it is being hijacked by the creamy layer of the masses, because, for example, reservation is for doctor. to study MBBS. What is the criteria? You have to have money, you have to have language, and you have to be able to even rent a good house to make this education accessible. And who are able to do it? Only criminals. Masses, yes, they are having certificate, but only public, weak English, less money. So there are many limitations masses has, who were earlier the most marginalized. That is how I say society is equal by law. Some provisions are there. Might be we are in a progress. We should not be that much worried about kind of legal and other thing, but how to empower the real needy, how to bring those benefits to the real needy is still a challenge. That is why I say reproduction of inequality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we met you in the graduation ceremony in KU a few weeks ago. And I just want to say I was a bit struck there when I looked at all the students who graduate, and I think I didn't see any Himalayan. It was like probably everybody was Kshetri and Shrestha, and I didn't see any Himalayan in the whole place. Himalayan people, like from Dolpo, Mogu, Nubri, or
okay.
Yeah, so if and it's like totally different from, for example, the monks in this monastery are all from, 90% at least are from the Himalayan regions of Nepal. So if you can say something about that.
Yes, I guess I have made a couple of prepositions. Number one could be, if you remember, or if I could communicate properly, I said everywhere there is inequality, and inequality is contextual. For example, for Himalayan people, there is different inequality due to their social capital, due to their distance from the places where education system is being offered. Might be these are some of the aspects to be considered. But today's topic would be, as I said, I try to deal with the most marginalized one. And for me, might be we can argue, might be you can come up with other prepositions as well. For me, today, Dalits are the most marginalized. And then if you come forward, even ethnic communities, forget about Himalayan people, ethnic communities like Newars within surrounding area, I guess Newars are upward mobile in many cases, educationally and in other aspects. But linguistically, their language was, in a way, not deliberately not used by the government for a long time. That is how linguistically they are deprived. That is how there is movement saying that Newa Bhasa Manka Khala. And that is how they consider saying that we are marginalized. Even if economical and other benefits are okay, but this identity is all about language, my linguistic preposition, etc. Like this, yes, Serpas, and then coming to even this locality, Tamangs. Tamangs, generally, if you try to understand Nepali society, Tamangs, Serpa, Gurung, all Himalayan people could be termed considering them as a people coming all the way from the boat, migrant from the boat, meaning Tibet. And Tamangs were marginalized within that tribe ethnic community. Newars were a bit ahead, but Tamangs were lagging behind. They were not allowed even to join military until recently because of their loyalty. Their loyalty was questioned by Gorkha Rijai. Like this Sherpas, I guess a couple of things to be considered. I have not studied much about Sherpa. That is why I'm not kind of authentic person to tell you detail, but for example, if one has no social capital, for example, in today's social network, I could say, rather than capital, then they might not be happily accepting this very occupation we discuss. For example, Sherpas are very good in climbing mountain because they see many of their people climbing mountain. Young generation Sherpas, once they are at the age of might be 11, 12, they start exercising to get succeeded in that manner. We have Gurungs, they try to go for British Army. After they pass 10th, they start having this training to succeed in joining British Army. And Brahmins, I say, even if they are poor, they start studying hard, having many hardships, they go to the school. And as I said, why? Due to lack of social network or due to lack of social network. For Brahmins, yes, they are poor, but they see distance. Even if they are distant, they own people in the government, in the bureaucracy, elsewhere. And for Sherpas, might be very less. I have had one student from Sherpa community last year. Got graduated last time, not this time. And I'm told that from her community, she was one of the first master's student because they see no faces right there in education sector. They see faces in USA. They see faces going abroad, having good restaurant. They see faces climbing mountain. I guess this very social network also matters for people to jump to from one to another occupation, I guess. For example, this is related to migration. For example, if I migrate to Denmark, then largely my family, my network people will be there in a way. You could see largely a family or distance, this relatives migrating. I guess even in this occupation of education, politics, etc., that's why we say, for example, why we need this reservation for Dalit. Once they feel like I'm elected, then might be their participation in election, not only voting, but also contesting election might be further enlarged, further strengthened. So I guess these are some of the prepositions to understand while you're talking about who are there and who are not. I guess this is my answer.
Thank you. Just another small one. When Dr. Ambedkar, like in India in the 1950s, and he converted to Buddhism, they say like 5 million people, 5 million Dalits, they converted to Buddhism in Nagpur in India. Did it change their social status among Indians, or didn't do anything?
Yeah, might be. I thought I should discuss two things: Buddhist Dalit, Christian Dalit, Muslim Dalits. That's available. These three prepositions or social categories are available in India. But yes, definitely. Ambedkar tried to argue saying that Hinduism is problematic. That is why might be Buddhism helped them to be empowered socially, going away from practice of untouchability. And in masses, people converted to Buddhism, even some to Islam. For example, many Hindus converted to Islam in Bangladesh and Pakistan, and even India, and some definitely in Christianity. But today, what is happening? There is crisis in India. I don't know socially, I have not studied, but politically, whatever reservation, whatever affirmative action is offered to those historically marginalized people, this politician, government tried not to address them. For example, those converting to other religion. Meaning, on the one hand, they are having this historical injustice, and consequence is that I'm poorer than others, I'm less educated than others, I'm less mobile than others. These are the result of historical discrimination. But on the other hand, government come up with some proposition to make me empowered, but that is not being given to me. Then might be this is a bit crucial question for them to face. I guess this is what has happened to India, and in Nepal, as I said, this Buddhism was also taken to consideration, saying that Buddha was incarnation of Lord Vishnu. That is how Buddhism was not very much recognized until recently. Today, yes, some people argue saying that I'm Buddhist while they were taking note of their religion, but caste of mind is even there within Buddha, argumentative Buddhists even today. Might be a large section of Buddhists in Nepal, might be not in a very educated circle, but those who claim saying that I'm Buddhist, but also practice this caste-based practices like a daughter's menstruation-based untouchability practice, some other way of following ritual of Hinduism, might be this is the case. So still, as I said, I, being graduated from university, largely my friends, I argue saying that what education you were given, what certificate you carry, if you don't realize what is this and what is that. So this very dilemma we have. That is why, I don't know, and then final thing could be, for example, even we try to study a bit about Lamaist Buddhist in Nepal, and we find some sort of characteristics borrowed from Lamaist Buddhism and some characteristics borrowed from Indian caste system and combined together to make this caste system in the hilly areas. So these are some of the nuances we have to study further. What is right and what is wrong, and definitely this is very difficult for outsiders, Western citizens like you, to understand our own this traditional belief system like caste. Might be you find some sweeping statements even if you interact with, but if you try to be participant, observer of this very society, you find many dilemma, and this is very complex, complicated issue even today.
Thank you very much, Professor. Very, very informative talk on a very important topic. I have a two-part question, if I may. Is there data on Dalits, proportionality of Dalits going to Qatar and other places for kind of lower paying jobs, relatively speaking? And is there information on Dr. Ambedkar, famously went to Columbia University. Is there any information on sort of upwardly mobile international travel as well in Nepal?
Exactly. Not in a very candid way. Yes, for example, now we try to fix % of reservation in, for example, medical education, for example, civil service, etc., but only in the entry point. If they drop out, then there is no data. Okay. And in promotion also there is no data. And we tried not to be very open to address this issue. For example, how civil service recruitment works is very interesting. Generally, if you create reservation for the marginalized most, then you should be very open to offer maximum seat available for them. But what we are doing is different way. For example, those creamy layers who could easily compete with people like me could be given this chance first, meaning they should not compete with me. They should be competing with their own people, eat up as a creamy layer, marginalizing their own people, then settling them there, and rest of the pie could be enjoyed by us. So that is how this very positive proposition by law, but very ill practice being practiced by our practitioners. That is why it's very difficult to have those data. Yes, for example, at the school level, you find very clear data because you have to enlist Dalits' name and offer a scholarship. Sometimes might be that scholarship might be manipulated. But for example, in the higher education, there is no, I guess, compulsion to put this data, how many Dalits, how many others. So that is why we feel like we have to have disaggregated data. I guess third time I'm mentioning this word, disaggregated, not very aggregated. Aggregated help you only to generalize. But to be specific, who is marginalized and who is the most marginalized, you have to have very disaggregated data. And I don't think that this is possible as of now. We're demanding for this.
If I can follow up, sir, I think, of course, very rightly, the emphasis is on uplifting people within Nepal, and there's a larger conversation about sort of brain drain and people leaving Nepal, people staying in Nepal. But I was curious about, like, is there any information on the proportion of visas? Is there any caste distinction that's been tracked, granted to Qatar, granted to the US, granted to Switzerland, whatever it might be?
About this people traveling for work and traveling for other purpose abroad, we have further messy data. For example, sometimes this government data could be saying, for example, 8 million people are abroad. And passport office say that they have issued only 5.8 million passport. And I challenge them. In my house, I have 3 passports. My daughter, my wife, myself having passport, and I'm in Nepal. You have issued 5.8 million passports, including my 3. And you say 8 million people are abroad. How this data is possible? And the silly way of calculation could be, for example, one guy is working in Qatar, 5 times he come to Nepal and go, and it is equal to 5. Eventually, this is 1, but they calculate 5 because they have only exit data number, but who comes and why, whether he or she go there is no data. That is why this is very silly way of putting data, and don't believe on this. The way I question might be, you understand? It was 1 year back or 2 year back data. Might be today, government has issued might be 7.5 or 8 million passport, but we say 10, 12 million people are abroad. These are all silly data. Don't believe on it. And forget about disaggregated. We don't have.
So I have a question because you mentioned today Mahatma Gandhi and then Dr. Ambedkar. So like Mahatma Gandhi wasn't a Dalit, right? So he was merchant caste, right? Something like Vanya caste.
I'm also Brahmin.
Yeah, so it's basically my question. So in India, we have such figures as Dr. Ambedkar, who was a Dalit, yeah, fighting for the rights of the Dalits. But here in Nepal, like, do you have any figures like him who would advocate for the rights of Dalits? Or it's mostly like upper caste for propagating kind of, raising awareness of the equality of lower castes such as Dalit caste?
Yeah, generally, Marxists won't believe. They say that struggle all the way comes from the masses. But in modern society, at least, this struggle all the way comes from creamy layer. the upward mobile. Definitely sufferers are there, but who champion this movement could be the one who is acknowledged as prestigious, knowledgeable, etc. And that is even within the marginalized community who are champion for this. For example, this very term Dalit, many grassroots people do not like to use that very term put on their own. Okay, they say in the name of Dalit, only we face is discrimination. Why we need this? Throw it out. This is kind of grassroots, largely grassroots aspects. But the very term has a meaning. That is collectiveness, saying that we are suppressed, but you should not suppress today onward. We are human beings. We have this baggage of suppression, and we are now equal to them. Treat us equal. Give more rights. Give more opportunity because of our historical context. So there is always dilemma, and I see this even in Nepal. For example, there are many social movements led by upper caste, as Gandhi. Okay, for example, this anti-caste movement might be you. You see, in Nepal, we have gone through this history creation lately, and that history creation was still confined to create our royalist history, because royalists were not in proper place to create their history until 1950. There was someone to glorify themselves, and from 90 onwards, while we were having democracy, whole concentration was to bring this notion of royalistic history in place. So that's why this subaltern history is not very profoundly acknowledged in our society. And we might not be able to figure it out saying that who helped whom. But if you ask me, for example, the political leadership, yes, today's political leadership is not very much sellable in Nepali context. But for example, see the first prime minister, elected prime minister, BP Koirala, he is the one who had a sense of this inclusivity. He brought a Dalit member to his party and allowed him to function as general secretary, the second in command in that very revolutionary party. Likewise, first woman minister was nominated under his regime. So sense of this belongingness, sense of articulation, assertions were there. But we, as I said, we have had democracy, non-democracy, royalist, democrat, ups and down struggle for long. Even today, people feel like, oh, better we have this and that. That might be the case, but yes, not very icon like Mahatma Gandhi, but I guess largely this is combination of idea of this elite, Dalit elites, and also other non-Dalit elites, and society won't be that much in kind of today's our imagination if Dalit and non-Dalit do not work together. If one try to boycott or avoid other, then I don't think that society could be emerged in a way we try to put forward according to our constitution. There must be many figures. I recall at least one, and later on also definitely this very agenda was political agenda due to parties and leadership, and fortunately, unfortunately, as of now, most of the party leaders are from high caste. So I don't know whom to give credit.
Okay, thank you. And just one small question: is there a way to trick or cheat caste system in Nepal? Because my Indian friends told me that there is a way to cheat on it in India, because of course family name reflects caste, But when they first receive identity papers, when they take exams at school, they can change their surname. Let's say take a surname like Kumar, which doesn't reflect caste. And so then if such a person changes family name, gets educated, then how you can tell he or she is a low caste? Is there
Okay.
such a way in Nepal?
Yes, largely India, Nepal have sort of connectivity, connection in social movement as well. And there was big movement in India, surname, avoid surname social movement. But it was largely in Bihar. But even today, the worst treatment Dalit gets would be in Bihar, UP like states. So this is a bit different. If you interact with youngsters, they might say, "Oh yeah, I don't know who is who." But as I said, people like me, like my age, might be accurate. Forget about. But and there is no. For example, how we introduce is very interesting. For example, for you, if you say name, that's all right. Okay, hello. But here, if you see and I'm together having coffee and we try to introduce, at least three things we ask. Name. If she say only name, I ask, what's your surname? And where you are from. These three, and her way of speaking, her facial expression, her sometimes fairness, these couple of things could already convince me to assume that she's from this caste. So our way of dealing with human being is a bit different, and maybe it will change during the course of time. But as of now, we have had a couple of similar um, propositions. For example, Buddha Nilkantha School and Paropakar School, these two public schools don't allow students to come up with surname. Their name and room number could be their introduction. It's okay within college or school, but once you go home, then, for example, I'm together with my colleague to home and they start talking about caste, this. And this society is so complex, and school in isolation, college in isolation might not work. So I guess this is the almost failed story in India as well. That's why now we say, yes, this reservation constitutional thing, say, I am Pariyar. Yes, I was told to be untouchable before, but I'm equal to you. Don't discriminate. So this might be your proposition could be a bit with inferiority complex. But now this Dalit identity articulates saying that, yes, I'm not inferior to mention my surname, but I articulate accordingly for equal treatment. Might be, I don't know which is possible way, but as I said, this is very complex society.
Well, thank you very much. This was a very enlightening talk. I was going to ask you a question, but we're getting late now. But it was about this enslavable. So it's a very interesting idea that people may be enslavable or not enslavable, and how that works with Dalits.
No, Dalits were definitely enslavable, but we're talking about those tribes, according to Indian saying, ethnic groups, according to our saying. Today, more than 59 ethnic groups are there, like Newar, Tamang, Rai, Limbu, Himalayan people, Shah, Sherpa. These are the groups. Out of these groups, there were two categories: alcohol drinkers, but one is above slavery. They can hire slaves, but they should not be slaves. Another one is they're part of slavery. They won't be human being. like slave could be like good. They can be sold, they can be killed. And in Nepali word, this is very interesting. We say in Mulukian, this very document, Mashinne, meaning they can be, what do you say, killed. They might be wiped out. Okay. If you are slave, then eventually you might be wiped out. You might not be existing anymore. Mashinne, meaning their fate is to be destroyed. That was the term used in Nepali. Mashinya matwali, namashinya meaning might be they exist because they are not treated as slave. So for Dalit, for these two, yes, definitely slavery, but only for Matwali, ethnic community, issue of slavery and non-slavery was there. And some ethnic communities were having higher status than others.
And is it playing today, even though we're in a different system, this idea in slavery? Because there's definitely people that are working for families that are almost like slaves.
Yeah.
In Nepal.
Again, the same thing. Slavery was eradicated, might be 30, 40 years after this act was enacted. But different level of slavery you refer to. Even today, there were Kamaya, Haliya, and other customary practices elsewhere. I guess today every slavery like bondage labor and other things are being officially made illegal, but might be this slavery at that time and today's kind of bonded labor thing would be having couple of different propositions. For example, slaves could be having no rights even for voting, but today everyone is given voting right, provided they go and register their name and they go to the polling booth and show this identity card is voter, then they can cast their vote, they can choose their leaders. Definitely economically they are deprived, that is why they are working for someone, but politically there is no slavery.
Thank you very much. So we're very happy that you came, and we would like to offer you a token for having talked and given us so much insight.
Okay,
Um,
thank you very much. I guess it was not boring, and I tried to create some food for thought, and I'll be happy to go further if you have any queries in the future. You can write to me, you can telephone to me, you can WhatsApp to me. Contacts are these two professors, and might be I forget to mention that we are also we are working in a team. This very institute is Institute of Kathmandu University also. So we are extended family in a way. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And like you say, I hope this can also be a circumstance for research projects that we carry out together, have this kind of dimension on the some of the projects that people do on the way Buddhism is practiced in Nepal, for example. That kind of angle would be very, very interesting to put some spotlights on. So thank you very much, and yeah, please come again.
One aspect, for example, related to this, I try to study Upper Mustang people, and I find very interesting connotation finding out of there. Sometimes this modernity also help manifestation of inequality. Might be that article, I can send it to you and you can forward it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.